Thank you, everyone, for your few minutes of patience while I found my way here. Let's bring the May 21st, 2025 Historic Landmarks Commission meeting to order with a roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uli. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine is absent. Vice Chair Uli.
Here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dorden.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Present.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Present.
And Commissioner McClure is absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to public comment. Anyone who's present who would like to address the commission about something not on our agenda today is welcome to do so now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uli. As Mr. Uli said, if anyone would like to speak on items not on today's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into me. Not seeing any movement on that, and we do not have any online participants, so I'll just state for the record that we did receive written correspondence from, from a member of the public, and that was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Includes public comment. Brings us to approval of minutes for May 7th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Any comments on those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On page 2, at the bottom, instead of it saying State Street Interim Working Group, it should say Working Group.
Oh, yeah. Keep it out of politics. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorden?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yep.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to C, approval of consent minutes for the same meeting, May 7th.
So moved. Second.
Any comments? Commissioner Lenvik?
None.
Oh. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Drury?
Yep.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to D, announcements and other things.
Thank you, Chair Uli. Staff has two brief announcements. Downtown Santa Barbara Improvement Association will be installing interior panels in the windows of vacant businesses downtown. They will be focusing on the State Street area first from the underpass to Sola, but will continue on side streets in that footprint and also on Anacapa and Chapala within the boundaries of the newly formed Community Benefit Improvement District. The DSBIA will create pre-approved panel design options for property owners to choose from when they have a vacancy, and the installation will be temporary until the space is filled. And my other announcement is the project at 301 East Yannon Alley Street is going to Planning Commission on June 12th, and an HLC commissioner must attend to represent the HLC's comments from the January 29th, 2025 hearing when the project was last reviewed. The motion was made by Commissioner Drury and seconded by Commissioner Dorden. Chair Grumbine and Commissioner Butler were both absent. Since Commissioner Drury was the one to make the motion, I will ask you first, are you able to attend the Planning Commission hearing on June 12th? Thank you so much. And then I'll send you the minutes as well, so you're reacquainted with the motion. Thank you so much. And that's all from staff at this time.
Any other announcements? Brings us to item D. Oh, pardon me?
Mr. Chair.
I didn't see your light go on. Or
Sorry. Just to follow up, we were invited to participate in last week's Planning Commission discussion over the Hyatt extension project, and I did attend and basically attended and made a few comments just to reflect what our findings were. So we were there.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other reports? All right. Brings us to item 1.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Please do.
Design Art Subcommittee met on last Thursday. We're slowly approaching the ability to present to the regions.
Thank you.
And I believe that's, sorry, I was just going to have you officially open subcommittee reports, although it sounds like Commissioner Drury got his subcommittee report in there.
In the nick of time. All right. This brings us to item 1, 219 West Figueroa Street. Looks like you have approach music.
It's just the PowerPoint presentation.
I have the report up as well.
Oh, okay, because she'd asked me just to do that.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm Tim Hazeltine from Post Hazeltine Associates, and Dr. Post is sitting in the audience if she needs to participate.
I'm Emmett Hawks, owner of the property.
Thank you.
So, I'm presenting this as a PowerPoint presentation, which is what staff had requested we do to sort of speed it up. Let's put it that way.
And pardon my
Yes, sir.
interruption, just to make a brief staff announcement. We will be requiring for HSSR's power, or for historic resource reports, because of the new updated MEA guidelines, the report preparers are required now to make PowerPoint presentations, so apologies, Tim, but I'll
Oh,
turn
no,
it back
that's
over to
fine.
you.
I'm not objecting to it.
So you're making them work more, is what you're doing?
Yeah, as if you don't already get enough stuff from us. But I would like to say that because this report was submitted as a draft before the ordinance was changed, it applies the ordinance as it was when the draft went in. And so, anyways, let me just get right to it so I don't waste a lot of time here. So 219 West Figueroa Street is a National Folk Style house built sometime between 1870 and 1888. It was likely built for George Trenwith, who founded Trenwith Stores, early on as a mercantile store on State Street, and later it became more of a department store. The reason weren't able to provide a certain construction date is that there are no building permits from that period. We reviewed all the historic maps that show building footprints, bird's eye maps, and city directories, and the city directories didn't start actually using street addresses, like numbered street addresses, until the very late 1890s. The early 1890s. So in these earlier directories, it'll just say Trenwith lived on Figueroa Street somewhere between De La Vina and Bath Street. But that doesn't tell us which property he lived in. When this house was one of the first two houses built on West Figueroa Street. As it notes here, it's a national folk style. It retains most of the materials and design features that convey its architectural style, including its two-story hall and gable plan, raised foundation, wide board siding attached with square nails, which is a diagnostic feature usually for construction before the early 1890s. It retains these character-defining features. That includes the original front porch post, most of the original windows, which are 2/2, with very narrow glazing bars, which are another indication of the national folk style, and also of a house usually built sometime in the very early 1880s, if not earlier. There was a two-story addition to the house on the east side of the house. It was constructed sometime between 1892 and 1907. The addition emulates the materials and style of the original house, the differences being that the glazing bars are a little wider. The porch posts on this addition, which is recessed on the east side of the house, are simpler, and the board siding is very similar but not quite as wide. A characteristic feature of this particular block, including the study property, is this low sandstone retaining wall fronting West Figueroa Street. And here's some photos of the house. It's been boarded up for security and to prevent vandalism. This is the original porch. As you can see, rather difficult. Turned out a little blue. I'm not sure why. Apologies for that. It's actually just sort of a gray color. And you can see there the distinctive 2/2 windows, the very simple trim work on the corners of the building. And I'll go to the next one. This is the east side of the house. And this is the addition on the left-hand side. So that porch and that two-story volume was added sometime between 1892 and 1907. As you can see, it's basically in the same style as the original house. And this is just a shot of the low retaining wall. Because of the way the street slopes, the north side of the block, the retaining walls are taller because it's going downslope basically towards the beach in a sense. So let me just bring up the next image. This is the rear of the house, and this is the part that is the most, I'll just be blunt, unattractive. And the reason for that is that originally, this house, these additions were all constructed sometime between 1888 and 1907. We believe a lot of them, many of them were made late in the 19th century, very early 20th century. And that was a period when this block was transitioning from single-family residence to multiple unit. And most of that activity on this particular block took the form of these larger houses being subdivided into rental units or single-room occupancy rooms. This is just another view. This is the west elevation and part of the south elevation. This is an example of the original siding type on the east side of the house. I included this because it's one of the square rectangular nails, which are indicative of this particular period, mostly before 1890. And this is just a detail of the original chamfered wood post on the west side of the street facade, which is the north elevation. And this is the porch that was added sometime between 1892 and 1907 on the east side of the house. And this is just another shot of the rear elevation, which is the least architecturally distinguished and least conveys the style of the house when it was originally built, because it pretty much has covered up the original south elevation. And this is the streetscape. It's composed of 1- and 2-story houses built between circa 1875 and circa 1930. The streetscape preserves its 19th century sandstone retaining walls and steps. While many of the houses on the street have been altered, they, for the most part, convey their original architectural styles, which range. I'll just actually bring some of these up. It's probably the best way to show it. And so this is the east end of the block on the south side of the 200 block. And this is showing craftsman-style houses built sometime in the very early 20th century. And this is the north side of the block, sort of across the street from this study property. The house with the hipped roof is either the oldest or second oldest house on the street. It's Italianate style, and it preserves its original Italianate style door. And this just sort of, this shot essentially gives you a flavor of that particular street and the sort of varied architecture ranging from National Folk style to Queen Anne, Italianate, vernacular, National Folk, Craftsman are the dominant types that are here, that are on the street. And they do essentially, even as I noted with the alterations, the street does, convey its early 20th century appearance. So it conveys the history of this particular block between the mid-1870s and, say, 1930. So it's sort of, and this is the west end of the block. This is a Carpenter Gothic house. It's difficult to see, but you can see the top of the gable there with its fretwork. I'm going to go back one, apologies. So right at the far right end, you see the 2 cypress trees, and then there's a building with a red tile roof. That's a small Spanish colonial revival neighborhood grocery store that was built just before 1930, a year or two before 1930. And it actually is a very characteristic feature of Santa Barbara's older neighborhoods outside of the Upper East and these upper class neighborhoods that we're sort of familiar with around the Mission, is that they often eventually transitioned to having small grocery stores and small businesses intermixed with the residential component of the streetscape. And this is a quite large, across the street from the study property, a free classic subtype of the Queen Anne style house. And here's our significant statement. The house, as we can see from the photos, it's in very poor condition. But for the purposes of our analysis, the standards clearly state that the deterioration would have to reach a level of making the style of the house and its original materials undecipherable, so you really wouldn't be able to tell what it was. In this case, despite its very poor condition, it still conveys its national folk style architecture. And it mentions here the two-story addition built circa 1892 to 1907. It's sympathetic in design and materials, so it's not out of scale with the original house. It's recessed from the street facade, and yes, it changes the configuration of the street facade, but it still discernibly reads as a national folk style building. The house and its sandstone retaining wall and steps contribute to an essentially intact streetscape of houses built between about 1875 and the late 1920s. The streetscape appears to retain a sufficient integrity to convey its appearance from the early 20th century. And while we're not making definitive statements about is the street a potential historic streetscape, land, or district, it's pointing out that there is the potential for that. The house is one of the two oldest houses on the block, and the house is potentially associated with Charles F. Trenworth. And those are the reasons that we found the house eligible for listing as a City of Santa Barbara structure of merit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add?
Yes. First of all, I would like to say that Tom Ochsner is not able to be here today. His family suffered a horrendous tragedy, and so he's not here. So he provided me with a letter that he wanted me to read into the record, and so I read this.
Vice Chair Uli, pardon my interruption. Mr. Hawks, can you please make sure that your mic is turned on, the light is green?
Oh, okay. There
Thank you
goes.
so much.
All right, thank you. Dear Commissioners, as we appreciate that the building may have originally represented a notable example of the national folk style, the current mismatch of forms and materials clearly represents a lack of consistency as the building has been added on to over the years. At best, this building is a hodgepodge of additions and alterations that have been added onto what may have been a building with an original cohesive design style. These additions and alterations appear to have been executed out of character with the original design intent. For example, I highly doubt this commission would have approved these additions if they were presented before the HLC. As far as the condition of the building goes, pictures say 1,000 words, and no one here has even seen or been inside the interior to see how bad it looks, not even the historian. I'm not here to go through the findings one by one, as I'm sure every one of you has already done so, but I will bring clarity to the reason why this building is here before you now. The owner, myself, received a notification from the city who was pressured by the neighborhood requesting that we demolish this building as it is an eyesore to the neighborhood and a dangerous nuisance in its condition. There seems to be a serious disconnect between how the neighborhood feels about the building and the findings here in this report. One final thing, the building is unsalvageable. The structural condition is beyond repair. Any attempt to restore the structure would end with almost all new materials, which would in effect cancel out some of the notable conclusions in these findings. We ask that you consider the findings in this report and conclude that this building is not eligible for a building of merit. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes. However, I would like to say, if you are considering approving the report, I would ask that you allow for a continuance so that you may see the interior of the building and see the exterior and actually see the condition of the property before you make a decision. And that would also allow Tom Ochsner to be present and to answer any specific questions that you might have.
All right, thank you.
And pardon my interruption through the chair to the applicant and the owner. Just so you know, the HLC does not have purview over the interior. They only have purview over the exterior. So I don't know that we could allow them to
Would
tour
that-
the interior.
Does the interior not affect the structural integrity of the building? So doesn't that provide HLC with the ability to see the structural integrity of the building by seeing the building in how it exists today?
I understand what you're asking. That would be a good question for the historian to answer, is how the interior plays into the historian evaluation of integrity and whether or not that's considered. I can't answer that, but that's a good question for the historian.
Real quickly, lastly, I don't think that we should rely upon the potential of this building being associated with Charles Trenwith. I mean, you know, it may or may not, and for that to be considered as part of this decision seems a little far-reaching, in my opinion.
Thank you. Is that it?
Thank you.
All right.
That's it.
Open up public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uli. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item, please go ahead and stand up and fill out a speaker slip for us and come to the podium. Not seeing any movement, and we do not have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it back to you, Vice Chair Uli. Thank you.
Thank you. Close public comment. Bring it to the commission. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner DeRee.
how long has this building been dilapidated in such a fashion?
This building has been vacant for, I would say, approximately 15 years.
Just left to rot, basically.
The property was my father's. He passed away last August. As far as all those pictures that we saw along the street, what they failed to show was the building next door that he had turned into an office space back in 1986. So the building directly next door is
Down
in no way
the
historical.
driveway on the right?
When you're facing the building to the left.
To the left.
So, and then the buildings to the right are extremely dilapidated rentals. So it's not really, you know, the one or two pictures that he showed that show a Queen Anne does not really reflect the neighborhood or reflect the street. And that's why I would encourage you to take a physical inspection of the property.
I think we've all seen the property.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly.
So it's been vacant for probably 15 years. It's just not, it's not habitable. I don't even believe there's a foundation. A bank wouldn't lend on it. It's all, the plumbing has been, I mean, nothing's been done to it in 15 years, at least. And before that, he purchased it from a gentleman that had let it run down. He owned the property next door, and that was why he was interested in owning that property.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
per the letter that you read, so is it fair to say that, and I think the phrase was unsalvageable
Yes.
in its current state, so the future of the house is what? Leave it, sit, well, I'll just stop, that's the question. The
So
future.
and that's a very good question. This whole process originated because we received a complaint from the city, and the city said, you need to do something with this building. And so we have always thought that we would develop that into some type of workforce housing. Okay, so that was the long-term plan, is to develop it into workforce housing. So with that in mind, we thought, okay, we need to proceed with the demolition of this property, because there's no way to salvage it, there's no way to rehab it, and the value is not in the building, so therefore, we will demolish it. We have now, since this whole process has started, we have started considering some workforce housing that we would most likely develop. So that's our intent. Our intent is to demolish the building and then provide workforce housing. It's within a mile of the MTD bus station. It's in a very walkable area. So, you know, that would be our intent.
And pardon my interruption through the chair and to the rest of the commission and the applicant team. I don't, the item before you today is not the project, it's just the report.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that we are not discussing any future projects or the potential for a project. We're only considering the conclusions of the report, whether or not you agree with them. It is completely fair for you to ask the historian if they feel that the building is too deteriorated to restore, but just make sure that you're focusing on the report itself and not a potential project.
Thank you.
Follow-up question?
Yes.
So what is the report's recommendation?
Is that true? Thank you, I wasn't sure. Well, the report the recommendation is that the house is eligible as a structure of merit.
Okay.
And I'd like to just follow up with something Ms. Riddell mentioned earlier, is how do we assess condition in regard to historical architectural significance? And as I noted earlier in my presentation, what we're looking at is the ability of the building to convey its architectural style. Where did that come from? Did I do that?
I think so.
There you go. Thank you. And we're not structural engineers. And I will say in our experience that occasionally we have found buildings eligible that are in extremely poor condition. And if a project comes up, then that condition can be evaluated in usually the Phase 2 report. And that's the one that would evaluate, usually with the structural engineer's assessment, whether it's possible to rehabilitate a building or not. But in a Phase 1 report, our baseline is there enough original material left, original architectural features to convey its architectural style or its historical association, if that's what's the most important thing about it. So we don't delve deeply into condition unless it is so deteriorated it can't convey its style. And actually that did happen out in Goleta. We did a 19th century farm complex a couple of years ago. And one of the barns had actually, essentially 2/3 of it had collapsed. So at that point, we can say 2/3 of the building have collapsed. A person looking at that building is not going to be able to understand what the original appearance and style was. So in that case, we said, yes, it's old. Yes, it could potentially be significant, but it is so poor, in such poor condition, it can't convey what would make it historic.
Thank you. Dr. Post?
Yes. Pamela Post of Post Hazeltine Associates. I'd just like to add on to what Tim has said, is that as architectural historians for the Phase 1, we are only tasked with determining does this structure convey its architectural style? Does it retain the materials? Interiors, of course, are not covered at all under the ordinances, so except under rare conditions, and this wouldn't be one of them. As far as association with George Trenwith, I did some research into Mr. Trenwith, who was here as early as like the 1870s. It's highly likely that this was associated with him, but we can't say definitively because there's no street address and at that time. And he said address was simply, he lived on Figueroa, but between, was it Bath? De La Reine and Bath. So, say interiors are not covered, and we can't assess the structural, because as Tim says, we're not structural engineers, and that's not what we're tasked with. We're only tasked with determining, does this building convey its architectural historic resource? And it is one of two of the oldest buildings on the block. And as far as the streetscape is concerned, streetscape is fairly intact between the mid-1870s and, say, circa 1930. Now, conditions of the buildings may not be as, what we would like them to be, but most of them are, quite nicely, taken care of, and still but they can still convey, their architectural style, but, the date in which they were built. So it is a almost intact streetscape, and is one of the two of the oldest buildings on it that sort of, in our estimation, adds to its significance.
Thank you. Commissioner Jordan.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Jordan.
A couple of quick questions. The 200 block of West Figueroa is not currently a historic district, correct?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Right,
Yes.
Okay. Also, I understand there's a legal definition to what's in a Phase 1 report. I'm interested in the Phase 2 report, to the historians, in your professional opinion, are the Secretary of Interior standards clear enough about what would be grounds for not rehabilitating? The claim is the building is unsalvageable. Are the Secretary of Interior's standards clear enough that they would give guidance to this commission about whether that's an unsalvageable or a salvageable condition? I'm just asking your
Jordan,
professional
yeah,
opinion.
I will answer that to the best of my ability. The standards basically are a set of guidelines to guide rehabilitation, preservation, conservation. So they're important to assessing the ability to retrofit a building, rehabilitate it, change it. But the core for that is actually a structural assessment from a structural engineer. And that usually comes in, as Ms. Rydell said, it's in the Phase 2 part. And so as we all know, the Phase 2 is, here's a project, what are the impacts of the project on a historic resource that's potential, designated, et cetera. And so that's one of the steps that's undertaken there. And as I noted earlier, that we have worked on projects where ultimately a building has been demolished that was historic, because the feasibility of rehabilitating it is not there. But that is, the basis for that is a structural engineer's report and also a plan. So this is what we plan to do. Now, of course, demolition is handled separately under CEQA, and that does take some additional analysis, and I would, in that case, defer to staff to provide guidance if a demolition was proposed, what would the type of documents and review that the city would request for that? Because there is a little bit of variability in how that can be applied. And so that would be the city that would make the determination. Ms. Riddell can jump in if I've misquoted
Yes.
that.
And through the chair to the rest of the commission and the applicant team, if the commission accepts this report and the building is found to be eligible for historic designation, if the owner and applicant propose demolition, that would trigger an environmental impact report, which is a pretty onerous process. But if you deny the report, then we're leading to a disagreement among experts, a negative declaration. So this is a tough situation if the building is not salvageable. So ideally, we would be able to come to an agreement if you do not agree with the recommendations of the report. Ideally, you would be able to work with the historian to get the report to something approvable rather than denying it, so we don't put that burden on the owner for the negative declaration or an EIR. So I just wanted to lay down those implications. I'll defer to the chair if the owner is allowed to ask a question.
Can I add something real quickly?
Quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, so that Tom Auctioner did say that if there was anything in the future, that we would document the existing plans and the original design, and we would cooperate in that. We would maintain the original stone curbing in front of the property. That would be done. I have no doubt that the property is not structurally salvageable. It's just not. I mean, you can take a look at it and see that. If you, as a commission, would like for us to come back with an engineer's report that said it's not feasible, because what we are looking at, like you said, is what are we going to do with this property? If you tell us we cannot demolish it, that property will sit there for the next 2 years while we try to come up with a plan to develop the property. We would prefer to demolish it, clean the lot.
Pardon my interruption, through the chair. I'm sorry, we really can't be discussing the future of the property
We have
and
to
the
stay away
project.
from what you want to do and only
Unfortunately.
talk.
Yes,
And only talk about what we've got.
Returning with
So,
a structural engineer
thank you.
report would be at a phase 2.
I got it.
Question,
We would prefer not to have to do a phase two.
a question for staff. A disagreement among experts triggers an EIR. But if we accept it, it would also potentially trigger an EIR.
If the applicant
If it
proposes
led to,
demolition.
okay, that's, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jordan, or Drury, didn't you have a question? But I didn't forget you.
That was exactly what my
Right.
question was going to be. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli. Is there a way to get agreement amongst experts? I guess that's part of our discussion today.
So,
is-
yes, that would be a discussion between the commission and the report preparers. If you can compel them to change the conclusions of their report, that the structure is not eligible for designation, they could come back with a revised report finding that it's not eligible. However, you would need to make that case to Tim and Pam. And they would have to agree to revise their report with different conclusions.
And just a follow-up to that, because this was a lot too, is there a place in here that talks about, and you probably already said it, so I'm just taking in all the information, but is there a place in here that does speak to the ability or for it to be, or you're just saying, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so I think what we've gotten a little too, and this is what I was trying to keep us away from, we've gotten a little too into the future of the property. And that's, we're in a difficult situation because, based on their criteria and their evaluation, they have found that the project does convey its historic integrity. But I can see that that the commission is concerned about placing an unnecessary burden on this owner and on this property.
Yes.
So we're in a difficult situation, but what we can legally do right now is only evaluate this phase 1
Yes.
report. We have to just be objective.
And just to be clear, so the record is clear, there is no current project before the city to develop this piece of property.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. So it seems to me it's a little bit of a catch. If we accept the report and its conclusions and the applicant chooses to develop the property, then they're going to be faced with countering that report, and it may trigger additional environmental review. If we haggle with the historians to try and get a report that says it's not worth anything, it may still potentially trigger something. It's not an easy baby to cut in half. Thoughts?
A comment. What I'm looking for is clarity on the criteria that would allow us to make a decision that could be defensible in legal and objective terms. And that's why I'm asking about Secretary of Interior standards. That's why these kinds of standards exist. My understanding as I'm listening to this is that what would trigger that is a Phase 2 report. To get to a Phase 2 report, we need to accept the Phase 1 report. I'll also say that I do find that although I acknowledge the house is in terrible condition, it retains sufficient of its original design features and materials to convey its original configuration. So my sense is that my personal opinion, and I'm perfectly willing to listen to others and be persuaded, we accept this knowing full well it's going to lead to a Phase 2. But hopefully that gives us greater clarity on the criteria, because we owe everybody a decision that can be defended on legal and objective grounds.
And the same conclusion would be drawn if we do not agree with the report. It would then also conclude in further environmental review, should a project be delivered.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
if I may. So what it seems to me, I was there this afternoon, walked around the house a couple times, tried to break in, it was pretty well nailed shut.
But we had to keep the homeless out. I'm seriously.
I know, I understand. But it's really the streetscape side of the property that's in question here. That's the one that conveys its original appearance, because around the side and around the back, it's a hodgepodge.
Chair, should I respond?
Sure.
Do you want-
Yep, sure, of course. Question?
It can be a question.
Okay, okay. Actually, Commissioner Drury, you're correct. The street facade is the most significant portion of the building. And then in descending order would be the south elevation is the least, I should say is the least, because it had these additions. Yes, they occurred in the early 20th century, but they did obscure the original house. And it's also, and I got to be really careful because of, as Ms. Riddell said, we're not talking about a project. But the core significant part of the house is the part that was built first. So later additions, including the wing that was added, while it didn't detract from integrity sufficiently to make it not eligible, it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be retained. And also, I would note that as Pam's research did demonstrate that the Trenwiths had moved out of the neighborhood at some time in the late 1880s, early 1890s or so. So that addition was very likely built after, if they lived there, it would have been after their occupancy. And I'd also like to note that the reason we put potential for the Trenwiths in the report, throughout the report, is because we are acknowledging that that is a hypothesis that we're not able to completely prove.
All right, thank you.
Chair?
So we're the experts on this side, they're the experts on that side. If we disagree, then we're sending them to more environmental review later. Not now, but later. Yes?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. And I know that Ms. Riddell will jump in if I'm asking the wrong question, but so we have a catch-22 here, as we all are aware, and how the city has notified the owner to do something about this house.
Yes.
And so where does that put them at
Again,
risk?
that is not on the table today. We are only reviewing the report. You are deciding today whether or not you agree with the conclusions of the report. That is the only purview of the HLC on this property today. So we
Okay,
have to put our
thank
blinders
you.
on.
So is there anything that the historians can offer? Is there any good ideas out of this discussion of how we might be able to address this?
I'm gonna stop you there. My suggestion is that we either agree with their conclusions that the house has significant evidence to support its potential to be an SOM, or it doesn't. So we have one commissioner indicating that he agrees that there's enough evidence to make that conclusion. So the rest of us need to chime in.
I haven't chimed in yet. It's interesting to sit here and listen to this discussion, but I would like to make a motion to not accept the Historic Structures Report for the building at 219 West Figueroa Street.
And
I do not find that the report conclusions that the street elevation retains significant integrity to convey its appearance from early 20th century. I do not believe that the house retains enough of its original design features and materials to convey its national folk-style architecture. I don't see that the loss of this building, if it is to be lost, and that's not the question here, I don't see that the lack of designation of this building as a structure of merit really affects the streetscape significantly.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any comment to that motion?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Drury?
Yeah, just to rehash the thing again, what is if we don't accept the report?
So, yeah,
On this
you
vote.
just made a motion to deny the report, which would lead to a disagreement among experts, which would
Right.
lead to an EIR, which is the same conclusion as if you accepted the report and they proposed demolition.
Should a project come our way?
Right.
But we don't know
so
about that.
Another alternative is to discuss Commissioner Lenvick's objections to the conclusions and the reasons why he does not agree with those conclusions, and discuss those with the historians and see what they think about that reasoning and if they would be willing to revise their conclusions. But if not, again, they are professionals and they've made their professional assessment of the building. So if the commission decides to vote on this motion, I've never seen a report denied at HLC, so I actually don't know
What
what
Ms.
the
Rydell
next
said.
step
Yeah,
would
we've
be.
done a couple.
Yeah, we are.
All right.
Yeah, we've taken a whack at the
Well,
historians
I would
once in a
vote,
while.
I would vote to deny the report.
Are we having discussion, though?
We're having a discussion, yes, we are. We don't want to drag it on too much longer, though.
Okay. Well, I definitely understand the issue here, and yeah, it's a tough one. But I do agree with the motion, and what I find is that the addition significantly detracts from the original aesthetic of the house, and substantially, and from the street elevation, because it adds that whole other porch onto it, and it's almost as big as the main house itself. So I find that to be of great significance. And, yeah, so I can find that, that it is not worthy of a designation.
Thank you. Any other comments to that? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lenbeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
No.
Commissioner Drury,
Commissioner Drury?
Yes. Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. And then Commissioner
y'all.
Dordan, can you please state your reason for a no vote?
I found the report persuasive.
Wait, say that? Sorry?
I found the report
I
persuasive.
know, but
Demolition is not a word we like to see.
I mean, it's
Thank you.
it's motivated us to.
Excuse me,
propose
we're
a
still
plan.
going.
Doesn't go on forever.
Yeah. Brings us to item 2. Item 2 is an archaeological report, 133 to 135 East Ortega Street.
Just a brief staff announcement
Yes.
through the chair to the applicant and to the rest of the commission. As you all know, ARC reports are confidential, so we will not be displaying anything on the screen. But the report was reviewed by Dr. Glassow, who agreed with the conclusions and recommendations. And I'll let the applicant speak on
Thank you.
anything else.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Roy, agent for the property owner. I'm not an archaeologist, so I don't have that much to add to it, other than the conclusions are essentially there is moderate potential to find cultural resources from the late 1800s, because the property is essentially 95% covered with either pavement, buildings, compacted gravel, that they cannot make conclusive findings for that. So the recommendation is that during any excavation, any pavement removal, that a archaeologist is on site to monitor that, and then clear the property of any cultural resources.
Excellent. Thank you. Open public comment?
Thank you. With no one else in the room, and no virtual participants, and no written correspondence, I'll go ahead and turn it back to you.
Well, that was informative. Close public comment.
It's a hot
Bring it to
topic.
the commission for questions if you've got them. Comments, if you got them? A motion, if somebody's got one.
I move approval of the archaeology report for 133, 135 East Ortega Street.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Lenbeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
and Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Significantly less painful than the last one, wasn't it?
That's right, that's right. Okay.
Brings us to item 3, 133 to 135 East Ortega Street. Project is here for project design approval.
And staff has a brief announcement before we begin, and then I'll pull up the minutes. Pilar Plummer, who is the case planner for this project, was not available to attend this hearing, but she left me with some brief announcements. The project is being reviewed for project design approval. If the commission feels that the comments about final details are minor, they can refer the project to consent for final approval. Just a reminder that the project is essentially adaptive reuse and working with the existing building and modifying as needed to achieve the rental units. Planning Commission was supportive of the conceptual review. I'll pull up the minutes now from the previous hearing. The previous hearing was October 23rd, 2024. The motion was to continue indefinitely with comments. The commission is supportive of the adaptive reuse project and is largely supportive of the architectural changes as proposed. 2, the 133 East Ortega building needs a lot of work to conform to the design standards of El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District and to achieve kinship with 135 East Ortega Street. The motion was made by Dordan, seconded by Ensberg. Grumbine, Drury, Uli, and McClure were absent. So Commissioners Drury and Chair Uli
Yes.
have reviewed thank you so much. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Welcome. State your name and for the record.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Roy, agent for the property owner. So I will just kind of thumb through the plans, then ultimately get to the elevations. So as noted, it's an adaptive reuse project, so there are currently 3 structures. I will just go to this survey. So there are currently 3 structures. 135 East Ortega is this partial 2-story, partial 1-story structure that's on the corner of Ortega and Santa Barbara Street. 133 East Ortega is there's this metal canopy, so part under that canopy is filled in with a building, and then there are 2 Quonset huts that are attached that are at the rear of the property. And then there's also this gravel, essentially parking lot area that's also part of the property. So we are proposing to change the use, which has historically been industrial, industrial and office, into residential uses. So we're proposing 26 units. 4 of those would be 2 bedrooms, which is a new component. Previously, they were all studios. And then the remainder would be studios. So I will go to the site plan. So a few changes from the previous application. So this is actually the 3rd time that the commission is hearing it. The first time was the required preliminary application due to the lot size for the AUD program. The last one they just read the motions for was just a conceptual. And then so this is the actual PDA. So at the first hearing, there was a little bit more support for kind of keeping all of the building exteriors kind of as is. In the last one, there's a little bit more hesitancy on maintaining the 133 East Ortega elevation as it was. There was also, in terms of the outdoor space, we're using the alternative standard to use common space instead of private open yard due to the inability to provide private open yard in this adaptive reuse scenario. And there were issues with using area under that metal canopy for that. So that metal canopy extends kind of to this column here over, and so it's now been peeled back approximately 20 feet from its current configuration, from where it currently is. So that does provide a little bit more light and air to the units that are part of adapting the Quonset huts, and then also the units that are underneath the remaining portion of the metal canopy. Another change is the Quonset hut configuration. Before, it was kind of their full floor area under the roof was to remain. Now, essentially, the facade is going to remain, and there's going to be an open air corridor that some of those units in the back here would be accessible from. Another change is that as you saw in the survey, the 135 and 133 East Ortega are currently connected. And previously, we were separating those two structures, and there was a walkway going through this portion. Now those are remaining connected from the street elevation perspective, and there's no longer a walkway going through there. And so other than that, the interior stays pretty much as it was previously proposed. So we have a access, well, the main access to the 135 East Ortega building is from these current stairwells and steps, and then we would have access points at either end of the property along Santa Barbara Street and Ortega Street. So this would be the Santa Barbara Street entrance, where there is a portion of the structure that is partially screened, and would be an addition to it. So that would be fully enclosed, and that would become the trash enclosure area. And then we have our bicycle parking at the north end on Santa Barbara Street. And then we have an alternative entrance on Ortega Street, where there's a current kind of a large garage door. So that would be filled in with a storefront system, and that would be another accessible walkway. And then later on, you'll see essentially the open space is it's kind of juxtaposing a more contemporary or modern landscape approach with that kind of ties into more of the metal canopy industrial look, but that kind of juxtaposes it with the Spanish architecture of 135 East Ortega. So this area here represents the portion of the existing metal canopy that is being removed, where previously at least this portion was proposed to remain. Here is the floor plan, so as noted, so we're keeping that main entry there on Ortega Street. Everything in the 135 building are studios. There are some 2 bedrooms within the 133 portion, and then some 2 bedrooms in the Quonset hut portions. And you can see here the walkway that's going to be open air, but we're keeping the facade of the Quonset hut, at least from Santa Barbara Street. There are some new kind of storefront pop-outs that would be on the Ortega facing side, but you likely wouldn't see that from Ortega because it's so far back in the property. Just thumbing through. So I guess another note was another way to add additional light under the canopy area was we are proposing to add additional skylights. There are a few existing, so essentially where there are only one, we're proposing to add another, so there'd be double skylights where there currently are only one. So I will go to the proposed roof plan, and we can kind of discuss this when we get to the elevations. So this is the back portion, that's a little addition. There's kind of an open kind of utility space here, and there's electrical room right here, and the parapet is lower than the parapet of this 1-story element. So the proposal is to bring that parapet height up to the existing and to kind of match the detailing, so it just appears as an extension of the building. And then for mechanical, we are proposing a mechanical screen kind of against the 2-story element of the building, kind of back here. And that will be proposed as just a plaster finish to appear like it's part of the building. So getting to the elevations, so starting out at the north, the top is the existing, you can kind of see here, so that's that partially open, partially screened portion that's proposed to be closed in. There are a few windows that are along there. The parapet height's a little bit lower. Also on the 2nd-story massing further back towards Ortega Street, there are a few tall windows that are proposed for removal. So the proposed elevation would be filling in this area that's currently partially open, bringing up the parapet height to the parapet that's slightly beyond it. So there'd be an added door there to access the trash room, a new door that would access the interior corridor for the units, and then a window that's part of a proposed unit. And then In this back corner against the second floor massing would be a low mechanical screen wall, and then there'd be a new window that would be located at that corner of the building. And then this is looking further beyond in the courtyard where we have the units that access underneath that metal canopy. And then just a general note is all the windows are proposed to be replaced with a fiberglass material, and they would all have divided lights more consistent with the HLC guidelines. So moving on to the south or Ortega Street elevation. So this is the existing 133 East Ortega elevation that at the last hearing, there wasn't much appetite to retain more or less in its current form. So essentially what we are proposing is to kind of, to make the building more harmonious, is take that single-story parapet element that you see on the backside of this two-story element going along Santa Barbara Street and continuing that detail along Ortega Street. So windows, the fenestration isn't quite the same because that has very repetitive windows in a uniform fashion. So this is more or less using the existing openings here, and there'd be a new opening at that where there's an existing door, and then one new window here. We would be proposing to, there are a few existing awning structures on the two-story massing, so those would propose to be replaced with new awnings, and that would be continued along this elevation. The sandstone wall, there's that current opening here that would be filled in, and that wall extends back beyond there, so the existing block should be able to be reused to fill in that gap. And then this is that storefront system that was mentioned earlier to fill in that current garage door opening, and then there'd be some accent lighting. The Juliet balcony doors, that would be proposed to be retained. Moving on to the Santa Barbara Street elevation. So essentially all of the fenestration along here is proposed to be retained. The windows would be replaced with the new fiberglass window. I'm told from the architect that essentially the proportions would remain the same, but they might be lowered by, I think, like 4 inches to meet egress standards. But the proportions would be the same. And then you're seeing in the back here the Quonset huts that currently there's kind of a big garage door opening, so that would be filled in and just have 2 windows, but the general facade of that is retained. The east elevation or west elevation, which is facing that gravel parking lot, is essentially remaining as is. It would just be painted. I believe the architect still has an incorrect note on a mural here. Mural was previously proposed, but if you'll recall, or I can go back to the site plan, we had to add a emergency vehicle access driveway for 117 East Ortega to the west, so there isn't that much left of that, and the fire department wanted us to put a fence around that, so it read like it was part of 117 East Ortega, so the visual accessibility of that's been kind of reduced by the improvements that would be required for 117 East Ortega. So just quickly on colors and materials. So essentially the existing plaster finish and color would be retained on the 135 East Ortega portion, and that would be carried over to the 133 East Ortega portion. The tile roof would remain. The awnings would be replaced with an awning detail more like this. Accent lighting is proposed at the entrance doors. That would be proposed similar to that. The storefront system at that opening on Ortega Street would be proposed to look similar to that. Parapet detail would essentially match what's going along Santa Barbara Street, which doesn't really have a cornice element to it. So it'd be pretty much just a straight parapet wall similar to what you're seeing here. The color of the windows would be this dark brown, this black bean color. That is, the awnings are proposed as a terracotta color. There aren't really too many iron elements. There's just the Juliet balcony on the second floor on Ortega Street, so that would be black. And then there aren't really too many trim elements other than the eave element at the second floor, and that would just be a dark brown color represented here. And that, then moving on to the landscape, I'll just, essentially it's kind of looked at as kind of an urban plaza in some respect with kind of different use areas, different nodes throughout the space. So there's barbecue areas, just general lounging areas, items like that. We can kind of go through. There's two graphic representations. This was asked before, but the color of the Quonset huts isn't proposed to be this green. It would remain the beige color, but you can kind of get a sense of the aesthetic that we're going for, which is tying more off of the more industrial look of the Quonset huts and the metal canopy, and then juxtaposing it with kind of the Spanish architecture of 135 East Ortega Street. And we have one more that's looking underneath the canopy. And that will conclude my presentation.
Thank you. Open up public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uli. With no one in the room, and again, no virtual participants, no written correspondence, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Close public comment. Bring it to the commission for questions. Commissioner Linvig.
So you're providing no parking for this?
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
And where do the cars park?
Well, the property wouldn't be providing it, so none would be allowed on the property. So if they had cars, they would have to park on the street, or there is an
In other words,
adjacent parking
you
lot.
really don't care?
It's not required for the project.
And pardon my interruption through the chair to Commissioner Lenvik. As
He
usual,
he knows.
parking is not the
Yeah,
purview of the
it's a
HLC.
rhetorical question, really. Commissioner Butler.
So question, did I understand you basically peeled the roof back, that's this large arch formation, about 20 feet? Is that what I said? Can you go back and just kind of
Correct, yeah, so
show-
it's,
show where,
yeah, so this portion here, I don't know if there's a highlighter available on here, but I'll just kind of thumb around it. So this portion here that's dashed on that metal canopy, so that would be removed. So initially, we were proposing to remove this portion that's closest to 135 East Ortega, but we were going to keep the full canopy that I would say is part of 133 East Ortega. So now we're peeling back approximately 20 feet of that from the Quonset huts.
thank you.
Commissioner Insberg.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Could we go to the elevations, please?
Yes.
Okay, the bottom two. So can you talk a little bit more? I'm trying to understand, the existing canopy roof has a peak and a slope to it. How is that being dealt with to get the flat?
So essentially, there's a little bit of overhang on that metal canopy, so that would be trimmed off, and new parapet wall would kind of have to be constructed. So there'd kind of be a double wall that would extend beyond the pitch of that gable. So it appears from the street as it'd be like a flat roof. So it visually cover the metal canopy, the gable canopy behind it, but it would still be there.
So the drawing doesn't look quite accurate to me. Should that parapet wall be up higher? It looks like the peak of the other roof is.
It should
Above that,
extend,
so it
yeah,
would be-
it would extend to the peak of that metal roof, correct?
So we would be seeing, there would be a dotted line of where that other roof is behind there that we're not seeing here, right?
Correct.
So it's really higher, okay. And then the other question I had was about this big garage door. I see there's like a man door in the garage door, right? So that people could come and go without opening the whole thing up?
Yeah, so this
that
might be
true?
a confusion with the landscape architect's rendering where it kind of showed it as a garage door. So we're proposing to just fill it in with a storefront, so it would be fixed, and there would be a pedestrian door that would be part of that
Okay.
fixed
I got
system.
it. So it wouldn't be,
No,
it's
it
not like
wouldn't.
the rendering?
Correct.
Okay, and then to the rendering, just quickly, and this will be my
Yes.
last question, I think, for the previous one. The big green element that's just below the palm tree on the left. What is that?
I believe that is just an error. I cannot say what
Is
that
it
is because
just a
there
filler or
would not.
something?
Yeah,
It's not a
it's
canopy
It's not a
or-
canopy or anything. So I would say what you kind of would potentially see as we're talking about that parapet line that would carry over. So you might see, say, a smaller wall portion, maybe like around here or something like that.
in the sky above.
Yeah, and then this would be sky above. Yeah, so essentially you might see a wall from that ridge line over for
Yeah.
forming that parapet wall.
Okay. Okay, and then I think you said that the corrugated is not going to be this green, it's going to be something else.
It would be the existing beige
Like that.
color.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Question.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Dree.
so the neighbor, you're aware of the neighboring project, of course. Yeah, so are you compatible? Are you guys sharing anything at all except the border of the property?
Essentially, it's just the border. That's I don't know the sub architecture, but I mean it's a Victorian type architecture, so there isn't really much similarity between this site and that site from that perspective.
Okay. The other thing is, could we look at the elevation that shows would it be the north or the west, I should say? Yes. So the repetition of the windows is on purpose, I'm sure, but could you explain why?
So that's the existing fenestration, or are you talking about the Santa Barbara Street or the?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Santa Barbara Street, yeah.
Yeah.
What
So
is that
that's, yeah, so that's the existing fenestration of the building. So we're essentially just maintaining that. We would just be replacing those windows, and maybe the sill height and the head height would be slightly lower to meet residential egress standards, but the proportions and everything and the patterning would stay the
Okay,
same.
thank you.
Commissioner
Question.
Gordon. You have to turn your light on.
You have a color rendering L03. Right, that one. What are we looking at with those multicolored panels?
So the original intent is that those would be a painted mural, so it might not look exactly
Okay,
like that,
fine.
but that's the intent.
Can you locate that on that particular angle? Where am I standing and looking on your drawing A1.1?
So you would be looking approximately here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I was just trying to.
Yeah, trying to orient yourself, yeah.
Box in space. Thank you.
Oh,
Comment?
one other
Yeah.
very quick question. The gutters and downspouts are what?
So those would be metal, and they would also be that black trim color. Let's see. So yeah, so they would just be painted metal or aluminum. They would be this black trim color. And generally on the architecture, they would just remain where they currently are.
So that picture of the building on the upper left there, is there a gutter, a
Ye-
downspout coming down there?
Yeah, currently it's unfortunately kind of in the middle. The architectural rendering or sketch is moving them to the ends. And then if I go to the photos, I think we can see where they are on the Santa Barbara elevation.
But they're on a light-colored white wall, essentially, right?
Correct.
Did you think about possibly making them go away?
Yeah, we would be fine painting them either something that's similar to the facade material or say like a lighter brown or something that's less contrast. Yeah,
Okay,
we'd be fine with
thanks.
that.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, you're talking about the downspout only being the color of the wall,
Yes.
not the gutter. All right, any comments?
Chair,
Commissioner Drury?
if we could look at the Ortega Street elevation again, please. So there's an opportunity, I think, with that, what is a garage door will be something less, but some sort of a spatial thing. I think you have an opportunity with the balcony and the decoration around that door to do something, to sort of add some poetry to that big door. That door is wonderful. The balcony and everything, but that door is somewhat unadorned. I think it could use something. Poetry.
What door are you referring to?
This door here,
Well, that.
this storefront door.
Yeah, storefront door.
Glass storefront there.
A little something. That's,
Could I,
don't wanna
could I
talk
jump
about it.
onto that and add my
Yeah.
comments now? I agree. I think okay, big picture, thank you. And I think it's really come a long way, and you've done a lot of good things to bring that one, especially the one big building, that we asked you to make it more, with more poetry and more suitable for, El Pueblo Viejo. I would love to see, like, I don't know what's going on the inside, but I think it'd be nice to have another window between that blank area, between the one window and then over to the former garage. It just feels like there needs something there. And I'm not convinced that big door, that is a very good solution for that. I don't know if perhaps you could study that and maybe shrink it down, and maybe have some kind of decorative element around it or something. It just feels like what it is, like it was a garage door and you put a storefront in. So I think it could be, and especially since it doesn't open, which I'm glad that it isn't, I think that's appropriate. The other, and then I had a couple other comments. One is, have you thought about, or I think the windows I'm not convinced that the black is the greatest color. And when you were showing the pictures of your sort of inspiration, the arched building, I think that's over on Chapala Street with the red. I would think that kind of a color maybe you would consider, or there's any number of colors, but I think, you've got the nice black wrought iron, so maybe a little bit more variety in for the finishes would help make the building feel more lively and more fun. So maybe the windows don't have to be black, maybe they could be that reddish color. I think that would work fine with the Sunbrella color you picked out. Or there's a million other colors you could potentially.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So just because of the window material and the samples are all of them here just for integral colors, would the bark color be potentially acceptable?
I think it's, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think you have an opportunity to kind of bring something a little bit more punchy, with the color of the window. It's very inexpensive because you just pick a color. So that's why I'm not designing it for you, but just saying that it seems that red that you picked out and put there could be really nice. Just a little bit something more. Yeah, so the awning color and the window color, just, give it a little bit more life, I would say. And then the final thing that I was having trouble with, and I'm not sure how much it's really part of our issue, is that the whole way that internal patio, you call it a plaza space, with the diagonal going through there, and then all these different finishes, and it just seems like it could be way more simple, and it could be a lot more beautiful and usable and flexible if it didn't have all of that stuff in there. But otherwise, I'm very excited about this project, and thank you for doing an adaptive reuse and bringing this housing to the area. I think it's going to be really great. Thank you.
Commissioner Butler? All right, Gordon.
Thank you for the project, and I will support it. I find it supportable. But I have some comments because I think it will also be the subject of a lot of attention. You're dealing with the conversion of a commercial building to residential. That's always tricky. What's kind of unusual about this is it's not a courtyard building. You're creating this interior plaza, but it's not a courtyard type of building. And I think one of the reasons it will attract an enormous amount of attention is because of how that interior plaza will be heavily used. I mean, if I look at it, you've got mostly studios, and you have 11 of those studios are less than 400 square feet. And of those 11, 5 are less than 350 square feet. And you've got one studio unit at 225 square feet. So people are going to be using that plaza heavily. And I think people will be watching this whole project very closely with that many units, with no parking, and forcing people, because of the unit size, into the public space. So I think I'm supportive because Santa Barbara needs housing, and this is the challenge of converting a commercial building. This is one solution. But I think be ready for a lot of observations when the building comes online.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner
I
DeRay.
have a short question.
I'll get back to you.
So that the iron railings will be solid stock,
Correct.
like brackets and so on? Thank you.
Commissioner Butler.
So I'm generally supportive of the project. I think what you've done to follow up and change the roof line in particular, I would support the other comments about the big garage door if there's some more elegant way, something to add some more mystery and magic to the building. I mean, it's a very long, flat wall. So in general, I think this project could, I could support moving this project going forward. I do agree that 250 square feet, you have to leave the room just to change your mind. That's just so small, I'm sorry. I mean, if it were Paris, I'd say, yeah. Anyway, I'll support that.
Overlooking a certain tower.
Absolutely, and that costs more. You pay premium for the view. Thank you.
I've noted a couple of study items, but it causes me to ask the question, do we think the project is ready for project design approval? Yes. Because if not, we're going to see it back with something.
Yes.
I think it's ready.
All right?
I'll make a motion.
Please do if you want to.
I'll make a motion for project design approval of 131, 133, 135 East Ortega Street.
And I've got a couple of comments I'll add to that. Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
And then, Chair Uli, will you be going through all of the comments for the record?
I'm about to do it right
Thank you
now.
so much.
Yeah, I anticipated the pressure of your hand on the back of my neck. Yep. First comment is the commission appreciates the applicant and the applicant's team for the time and effort that they've done to bring this project to us, and for responding to our comments. There was a comment to integrate the downspout color into the wall color so they don't stand out. There was comment to study adding a fourth window at the west end of the Ortega Street facade, basically between the big commercial door and the other three. Study simplifying or different materials and arrangement of the interior courtyard, make it simpler. And following Commissioner Dordan's comment about that, more usable, at least for the 250 square foot people. Those are the comments I wrote down. Any others come to mind?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the big door needs a little bit of poetry.
All right, add that to the study of that door.
Could I add to that? I do have a little bit of an issue with that. I really feel that something needs to happen with that door.
This is why we're
So-
asking to study it.
Okay, but when we, if we're going to approve it, would it come back on consent, or are we just going to approve it?
I think
guess
that is-
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that was up to the motion maker. He didn't say that.
Correct. The motion on the floor so far is just project design approval with comments. It has not been continued to consent, so if you want to see it back at full commission, that's fine.
Just the motion?
Would you like to continue the motion to consent?
Yes, I'd like to
Continue to consent for final approval. Thank you. Does the seconder agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, sorry if you said this, to study the color palette.
Only with respect to downspouts.
Okay, well then could we please add to study the color palette with respect to the
Windows.
awnings and windows?
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Is the seconder okay with that, motion maker? All right. All right, good enough. I know. I feel the pressure of the thumb now.
Ready
Roll
for
call,
vote?
please.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner Lenvick?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right,
you.
good luck.
Thanks a lot.
So we don't make findings now.
Oh my gosh, the findings.
I think the findings should have been made before the vote's taken. Personally.
Likely.
That is correct. I'm
Then,
so sorry. Thank you
then-
so much.
Then we'll
Commissioner.
reopen that motion.
And then I've got the project compatibility findings up on the screen if the motion
Good
maker
catch,
would like to make them.
Commissioner Limvick.
Well, I'm,
You should be vice chair.
yeah, right. Chair of Vice.
Would the motion maker please go through those findings? Got to turn your microphone on if you expect anybody to hear you.
Actually, speak into the microphone, too.
Yeah.
Project compatibility findings for 133, 135 East Ortega Street. It is consistent with the design guidelines. The project is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city, yes. Compatible with the architectural character of city neighborhood, yes. Appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale, yes. Sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources, yes. Public views of the ocean mountains does not pertain to this project. Use of open space and landscaping, does the project include an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping? Yes, it does. There's some more, I think, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that is the end of the findings,
appeal.
but the
Okay.
appeal, the project is appealable within 10 days to city council.
Is the seconder okay with that?
Yes.
Should we do a new roll call?
I'll take a roll call.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvick?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good luck with that one. Now we're only an hour off.
No, we're only 10 minutes off.
Listen to the box.
Oh.
I hope
Oh.
so.
Cross three up.
We don't get it.
Chair? Materials to lay out. Where do you think would be a good spot?
Put it right here in the middle where we can see them. That way the camera can see them.
Should we lay them all out?
And then staff has a brief announcement before I pull up the minutes. The case
Well, let me
planner.
announce the item first, since I
sorry.
didn't do that. Item number 4, 531 East Ortega Street here for project design approval and final approval. Now
Thank you so much. And then the case planner for this project is also Pilar Plummer, who is not able to make it to today's hearing. But the only announcement she had was that the project received the requested additional community benefit floor area needed from City Council on April 29th. And with that, I will pull up the minutes from the last hearing. The project was last reviewed by the full commission on February 26th, 2025. And the project Was continued indefinitely with the comments that the commission appreciates the applicant's time, effort, and response to the commission's comments. 2, the commission is supportive of the direction of the project. 3, consider breaking up the paving pattern of the parking lot with a different pattern or color so it doesn't read as one big parking lot. 4, study simplifying the landscaping, which may include the fence railing detail. 5, study the color of the new building to be more in contrast to the historic building to differentiate. And 6, the commission feels the project is ready for project design approval upon return. The motion was made by Dordan, seconded by Butler. Grumbine and Drury were absent. Commissioner Drury, did you watch the, thank you so much. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you. If you can introduce yourselves.
Ryan Mills with DMHA.
Justin Manuel with Arcadia Studio.
Izzy Savage with DMHA.
Welcome. Are you waiting on us? Okay.
Do the last item. We're patient.
Don't say that.
Oh. We're extremely in a hurry, so get on with it.
I didn't know if the minutes were going to be read or not. I wasn't sure.
I think they were.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yes, you did.
Ah,
Do you want me to run through my?
yep. So, yeah, let's do that.
Could you go to the landscape site plan? Yeah, if you could zoom in on the parking lot, just to address the comment about parking lot colors. Yeah. So we're good. So we were asked to break up the paving, maybe with colors, maybe with pattern. So we did that, and we used 2 primary colors and then 1 accent color for banding. This is Santa Barbara tan, and that's going to be the drive aisle. And this is just tan, and that will be the parking spaces. And then this color is country loam, and it's got a lot of variation, so this sample is not indicative of all the range.
I apologize for interrupting you. Can we go to the overhead camera? See TV follow you as you're doing that.
So this is Santa Barbara tan, which will be the drive aisle. This is tan, which will be the parking spaces. And this is country loam, which will be the accent banding to differentiate the 2. And we just went with a very, very simple color blocking. And that's for the first comment for landscape. The second comment for landscape addressed the railing. And at the last hearing, we got a comment it felt like there were maybe 2 comments. 1 comment to restudy the railing as it might be too ornate, and then another comment which seemed to be in favor of it. And so this is the same railing that you saw last time, but we did restudy it, and one of the suggestions from the board or from the commission was that we invert it and put the detail on the bottom. We looked at that, and the planting that we have proposed all along this wall, that's number 4 on this detail, is going to cover the wall and a portion of the railing, so you most likely, at least in about half the site, won't see the detailing. And then we also felt that in the higher security areas, it just aided in a foothold to be able to climb the fence. So we kind of, in putting the original railing back on the plans, put to you to get a little bit more clarification on if the whole board feels that this needs to go a different direction, or if, as one of the comments, that this was a positive direction. So those are the 2 comments related to landscape.
And then we'll jump into our comments looking at, we reproduced some renderings. Kind of the main focus of our studies have been material palette based on the comments for a little more contrast, brighten things up, getting it a little less muddy, and not wanting to rely on purely renderings and screens. That's why we brought in the materials as well. So we'll do a quick walkthrough. So this really is not a whole lot different. It reflects the currently proposed paver system. Otherwise, that's the existing block material. And then what you do see beyond is that parapet screening and that was that, if you can point to that color, that tan. Oh, that's on, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
this
the
guy.
materials for the block.
Do we have that
So the-
handy?
Yeah, so those are in here.
Oh, here,
So
there it is.
these-
I
It's a duplicate. So this is for the site walls as well as for the block building. So the block building, we didn't really receive any comments on the material palette, so this is just bringing in the physical samples so you can compare them to the new building, which we did receive comments on.
Okay.
So that is this for the screening walls and site walls. This is a close match to the existing block. It's that pinky color. And the eaves are inside and outside to be this wood clad with a gap with a mesh behind it, or not a mesh, a scrim behind it. And the trim on both buildings, fascia, and then the dentils on the block building are this darker color. So those are the same palette for last time, just for reference.
And then skipping to the new building, that's where we made adjustments to all the color swatches. So let's see, I don't know if we want to pull it, there we go. So starting here, so here's a good place to look at both. So again, the comment being a little too, I think, brown or tan or beigey. So this is a good place to see it. So these were the previous two colors here, right? The two color version. So this being the main stucco color throughout, and then this being the panels you see on, I don't know if we could flip back to the other screen, to the rendering. You can see on that parking lot side, in the above and below the fenestration is the darker colors. So what you can see is those two colors turned into these two. So the fan fold we did was to simulate, that's the panels above and below the fenestration. And then you can see the new color is a lot more like a warm sandstone inspired, brighter color. And so that you'll see mostly on the interior courtyard side. Otherwise, as we look, if you don't mind, can we go to the renderings one more time? So here at the administrative building, kind of those main walls, they turn inside the base and really kind of the pilaster elements between the fenestration. All of that will be the travertine. So really the bulk of that facade is the travertine material. And then let's go to the next. And you can see then Arcadia's adjustments to the pavers. We're showing now the difference in the breakup. Let's go to the next rendering. A little closer. So as you can see, as the approach, left is the old block building and some of the new screen walls, stucco walls above, and to the right really is primarily the travertine. And then let's continue inward. We have some evening views to show how lighting was starting to work. And then if we go into the courtyard, so again, I think this is telling where, again, left and right sides, really the primary material, again, is that travertine, and we're showing the patterning now. So where we get that stucco color really is inboard of these pilaster fins. So it's really the two sides. The backdrop is the gymnasium, so that's all glazing. So that's really where the color changes mostly. And then beyond, you see the top of that, it's the parapet of the gym, and that
It's
was
also the
that
same.
same swatch. So we kept it, we brightened that one up too. So that's really the main primary color changes. What did you want to add?
I think that's about
Oh,
it.
I thought you
Materials,
wanted to
just
say
the
something.
breakup of the,
Yeah, so a couple more things. So we keep developing the stained glass elements. So you can see at the chapel there we've we studied, and we have an elevation of this we'll get to in a second, but we kind of studied loosening up the pattern. So we liked the idea of kind of the three main breakups. That bar there is at the floor line, and then the bottom bar drops down, and then we have one more breakup above. And what we did was kind of create somewhat like a hurricane pattern on the way up. Originally, it was just orthogonal, but we kind of loosened it up and enlarged the scale of the panes of glass so it kind of lightens up. And we're playing with opacity and transparency with these colors. So this is our starting point. So we're working with this manufacturer, and they can do blends as well. So this was the palette we are starting with, and then as we move forward, and it's kind of like the shop process with them, we can start mocking up some versions and kind of getting it just right. So there'll be a little bit of artistry to that as well. But that's the palette, kind of the natural water, ocean hues, and a little bit of the greens, kind of to tie in the natural palette. Another little item we developed was on that south wall, as you walk in, creating or embedding a cross element within that opening that engages the sandstone wall there. And it's deep, so it's both, it breaks the glazing into the chapel, but it's about, is it about a foot deep? So
Yeah, those walls are about like 1 foot 6.
1 foot 6, okay.
And then they protrude another 3 inches on the outside and on the inside, so that it doesn't feel just like a mullion breakup. It actually symbolizes the cross on both sides.
A couple other items. We've added the flag hardware, the banner hardware within, just to soften the environment, but also so they can do a program for the school. They can change throughout the year. And we studied sizes, but that seemed like from the upper level, a good size that is dramatic enough, but easy to access and change and maintain. One comment was about the planting on the second row. We all felt strongly, we kind of looked at it without, but we liked the idea of irrigating that and maintaining kind of and softening greenery along that upper terrace and walkway. Otherwise, those were the main changes. We had a couple more views, again, showing evening. I think of that shot. Did we do that? As we were studying the stained glass and just knowing in evening events and certain times of year, how will that light change? Like, you start getting the warmth inside the chapel, and equally the cross, you can see how, because of the depth, it can be lit in an interesting way. So we like that focal point becoming stronger. So those were our changes. We have all the details, all the sections, all the specifications. We can cover any material in more detail if you like. We are here for PDA and final if you deem us ready, and we're currently in the building department.
May I make one more comment about
Sure.
the railing detail? I had forgotten. We had also explored, because I think what the comment was getting at was that it was too similar to the dentils on the building and an exact replica. So we studied doubling the horizontal length and keeping the vertical pieces, and actually felt that looked much more like the dentils than the design that we have here, which felt a little bit more of an abstract. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. Go to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uli. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item, please stand up and fill out a speaker slip and turn it into me. Not seeing any movement, and then I'll ask our virtual participant if there is any interest in public comment for this item. Please raise your hand. Not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Close public comment, bring it to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Beck.
The lighting, page 43, can you just, I think that's what you're calling the courtyard, or you have some vertical on the, yes. So do you have, what is that specifically? Do you have a?
Yeah, so let me go to the cut sheets for that. Just before this. You can see it's also on this promenade coming in. So that fixture is right here. So that great compression with the text. But it's more of a soft glow. So there's a bar in front of it and a bar behind, and it doesn't have any uplighting because it's being blocked. So it's just kind of to punctuate those columns, not really a functional light.
So it's more decorative when
Yeah.
you say that, okay, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Ginsberg.
Thank you. Could we see a picture of the entire project from the street, like what the public sees, again, just as a reminder, how this presents itself to the city?
This one from the street, and then around the corner, we only have that court, the entry court. We're a little zoomed in.
This is Salsa Puedes. So,
From the street, yeah.
so do you have from the other side the actual, so how does, the public know where is it right there?
This
Yeah.
is, yeah.
So if I was in the street, that would be, that's on Gutierrez.
Yes.
Ortega.
This is
Or,
Ortega.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ortega, sorry, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? How about comments?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Butler.
So I think this is great. I think, you've captured kind of our thoughts and looks good. I think the railing, leave it, it's fine, great, makes sense. No footing, I could see the point about putting your foot in there and then, whew, and your full bike rack is available, so I think, in general, I think the excellent project, I would support it for final.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Dree.
I'm in complete favor of this project as well. I love the fact that when I looked at the video, that there was sort of a certain dullness to the palette. Now you've just amplified it, and all those reflective walls are going to just illuminate the whole campus. I'm very much in favor of it. Thank you. Great project.
Commissioner Limbeck.
I would, yeah, could you show me where your utility connections are? Double check valve for fire, transformers above grade.
Yes, let me find that. That's going to take me just a moment. Here we go. So here we have Salsa Puedes, and here we have Ortega. So let me zoom in. So coming from the corner, we have drop-off pickup area, an elevated teacher's patio. Here's our bike parking behind screening walls, and then further back against the building is trash. Coming back to the corner, going up Salsa Puedes, you have the driveway entry to the parking area. And then we have the transformer on street level here behind a screening wall with a gate.
So that's not planted out necessarily.
We do have planting. Let me zoom in.
But no trees or shrubs or whatever.
This is just ours. I can switch to Justin's and he can walk along. Let me just find his sheet. I think it's 37. Nope. You're 57.
You've memorized every sheet.
I know where
Impressive.
4 are, and I can guess from there.
I think you can go probably 4 forward.
Okay.
What we have in front of that is probably going to be 4 or 5 feet tall at max.
All right. And what are they? What is C?
It's a natal plum. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
And where is your double check valve, fire protection?
It's on the other side. Is it with the other?
Yeah, it's down here.
Yeah.
Let me go. I can go to civil.
If you,
I think it's by your trash can.
No, I don't think we stuck it over there. Oh wait, civil's the other way.
Actually, if you stop at the planting, I can kind of say what the planting is around it, and then
Over
your
here.
cursor.
Yeah, it's over here.
Yeah, so that's going to have
PC.
2 rows of planting in front of it, and then surrounded by trees. And the intention is that you would not be able to see into the parking lot there.
So where's the double check valve in that?
He was just walking through the planning. I'll jump to civil.
It's going to be relatively large for a facility this size.
Here we go. So it's on the other, so here's the
it's
sidewalk,
right-
here's
right
the
there.
wall,
Parking
and
lot
it's on
side of
the,
the wall. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have rooftop equipment as such?
we do have rooftop equipment, but it's behind new screening, so I can
Yeah,
jump
it's
to
screened,
the,
okay.
yeah. So I can jump to,
But there's nothing on top of the gymnasium or the rec building?
there's not on top of the gym, but the adjacent buildings. So here you can see the screening that'll be around on the block building, and then I can go to, you can see the screening here, and I'm going inside. So this parapet is around the gym roof, but there's no equipment on top of the gym roof itself.
But is there a molding on top of that wall, that screen wall?
Yeah, we're just doing a simple, I think it's like a 1x6.
I'm sure you want to do that even.
Well, so originally we were matching, well, in both cases, we
Yeah.
had, the first time we had no trim. And it just, I don't know, we were struggling with it, felt like it just was falling flat. It looked a little too simple. I don't know, so we studied adding a couple details and we pared it down to just one trim.
Now, is it going to be the same color, that screen wall, as the building walls and the facial wall?
Yeah, it's just hard to tell in this rendering because the top of the wall is in full light and below is in shadow, but it'll still be the same color.
I'm wondering if that shouldn't be a darker color more to get lost in the sky. But
We have the,
what am I to know?
this is the screen wall on the block building. It's a little more muted.
I think, is that the one we had last time?
It-
We were,
The one we had before last time, yes,
it was that.
it was this
So we
one.
could,
Just on the upper one,
You
send
think
this
that might be
back.
something you'd choose? You think that might be something you'd choose?
that's what we proposed
Oh.
previously, but maybe that's a similar value to the sky, so,
Well, it's just a thought on my part. I'm
Yeah.
not going to, the project is so well done, I can't,
and,
I would like to find a way to improve it for you, but I
well,
can't.
and then the trick with that wall, I think the balancing act is, like, in that one view we see, that makes sense, but we have to kind of turn all the corners, and it becomes the whole big building, so
Yeah,
so it's sort of the trade-off.
that's my only comment, sir.
Any other comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for project design approval and final approval for 531 East Ortega.
And you have findings to make.
Okay? The building is consistent with the design guidelines. It's compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood, particularly of the neighborhood surrounding the project. It is an appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. It is sensitive to adjacent, I'm not sure there's adjacent landmarks and historic resources to be,
The
Sensitive.
front,
on the property.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. Public views of the ocean and mountains are not negatively impacted, and there is an appropriate use of open space and landscaping. And there's also, exterior alterations are being made to restore the historic resource in order to substantially aid its preservation or enhancement as a historic resource. and the exterior alterations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards.
Thank you. And with the following comments, the commission thanks the applicant and applicant team for their time and effort to get here today and on this project and responding to our comments. We appreciate that. And with that, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Uli.
Yes,
Motion passes. Thank you.
that might be one of the only times where there's not a litany of comments attached to something. And the appeal period. Did you announce the appeal period?
The project is appealable to City Council for the next 10 days.
Very good. Vice Chair. We're adjourned.